Captain Marvel is a character that has existed in the Marvel Universe since 1967. In 2019, Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios decided to introduce this character into their Marvel Cinematic Universe, and this was met with praise and much criticism. Now, most of the criticism came when the film star Brie Larson had made some comments that had upset a bunch of people. Now, upon its release, it was met with even more harsh criticisms of the film itself and even more so of the film star Brie Larson. But in the mess of all of these reactions to the film, there was one person who stood out of the crowd in their criticisms, and that man was Eric D. July. You might know him better as Young Rippa 59. Now, aside from his passion for this character and his obvious discontent with the film and its adaptation, what really set him apart is that he wasn't upset about the film star Brie Larson and what she had said. He was more upset about the inaccuracy of the adaptation of this character into film and onto the big screen. Well, at the time, I had really only read a little bit of Captain Marvel. I was a little over a year of really getting back into reading Marvel comics. And the only thing I myself had ever read was of Carol Danvers Captain Marvel, and to me, the movie really followed that character pretty dang accurate. But fast forward a couple of years later, and I have finally heeded the words of Young Rippa 59 and read The Death of Captain Marvel. What's up, everybody? Trinity here. Welcome back to Second Street, where today I will be talking about and reviewing The Death of Captain Marvel trade paperback. This trade paperback collects several different issues, starting with Marvel Superheroes number 12 and 13, Captain Marvel issues number 1 and 34, Marvel Spotlight number 1 and 2, as well as Marvel graphic novel number 1, The Death of Captain Marvel. Now, this has these collection of stories that will get even the biggest of normies an introduction to this character and his adventures as he first comes to Earth and meets a bunch of different allies, enemies, and even his untimely demise. Now, if you like what you're seeing in this video and this review, make sure that you hit that like button, and let's go ahead and get right into this review. And if I get a little bit long-winded and start flapping my gums too much, there should be some timestamps down in the description where you can go and skip a little bit ahead if I'm flapping my gums too much. Now, starting off, as I said, this does have several different issues in it. The first 3 issues were Marvel Superheroes number 12 and 13 and Captain Marvel number 1. Now, Captain Marvel number 1 came out after he had had a big debut in the first 2 issues, and they decided to go ahead and hurry up and get his own title out. Now, in these first 3 issues, we are introduced to Captain Mar-Vell as he is sent, and he is part of a crew being sent to the Earth from the Kree planet of Hala. They are being sent to Earth after Earth has kind of been targeted because the Kree Empire had actually sent a sentry, if you will, a Kree sentry there to destroy the Earth, and even one of its own accusers named Ronan to investigate the Earth and see why they are defying the Kree Empire. After a couple of failed missions, they decided to send this crew out there. Now, this crew was being led by Colonel Yon-Rogg, who actually had a secret obsession with the medic on board by the name of Una. Now, Una was actually in love with Captain Mar-Vell, and this is one of the things that kind of set Yon-Rogg against Mar-Vell. And you can see here through these first 3 issues how he kind of has this lust for Una, and Una doesn't have any affections for him whatsoever. She is in love with Mar-Vell. Now, Mar-Vell knows that he is being sent on this suicide mission to Earth all by himself as a setup from Yon-Rogg so he can be killed, and Yon-Rogg can then move in on Una.
to which she does not share the affections. So Mar-Vell ends up coming to Earth, and he has to use this like serum that they had created so he could breathe on Earth and survive for 1 hour outside of his Kree suit. Now he gets there on Earth and he starts investigating some things. And right as he's on his mission he's being checking out some different things there. There's a missile launch that goes off that he's investigating. He's also there just kind of checking out Cape Canaveral when all of a sudden he is attacked. As at the same time that he's attacked, Colonel Jan Rog actually sent out a laser to try to kill him. And there was an airplane that had diverted and got in the way of that shot, and it actually shot down this plane. Well, in this plane, it actually happened to be this doctor that was flying to Cape Canaveral, and his name was Dr. Walter Lawson. Now, Mar-Vell ended up taking on this alias. He took his ID and everything, as he looked very similar to the doctor. He went to this testing facility, ended up getting some access, kind of learning about some of the things that they were doing there and some of the missiles and weapons that they were doing. He was introduced to the head of security at Cape Canaveral, which was one Miss Carol Danvers, as she was very suspicious of this of Mar-Vell, who was going under this alias Dr. Walter Lawson, and she was kind of sitting there investigating him. Now, when at some point he got clearance to go check out this Kree sentry, and he's like, whoa, this was our Kree sentry. Well, as he was there, this Kree sentry had all of a sudden it had repaired itself and it had begun to attack. Well, Mar-Vell decided to intervene and see what was going on and stop this thing, and it would stop at nothing. It was meant to destroy the Earth and destroy anybody that stood in its way. After a tussle with this machine, Mar-Vell did end up destroying this Kree sentry, and he ended up living after all. And that's pretty much what you get out of these first 3 issues here. Then after that, we move into Captain Marvel issue number 34. Now, in this issue is where we are introduced, where we find out that Captain Marvel had actually been linked with Rick Jones. Now, if you don't know who Rick Jones is, he's somebody very popular who's worked with Captain America, the Incredible Hulk, the Avengers. He's just been, he was basically just one of their young sidekicks. Well, in this case, he's actually kind of tied to Mar-Vell at this point through these negabands. Now, this Mar-Vell had got trapped in the negative zone after some skirmishes, and the way that he is able to go to Earth as he's trapped there in the negative zone is when Rick Jones takes these negabands and clashes them together, and they basically end up switching spots. Well, what happens here is that at Cape Canaveral, they had been developing Compound 13, which was a deadly nerve gas that causes instant death. And this was something that a villain by the name of Nitro, a character who could make himself explode and reform again, had come after this Compound 13. At this point, Mar-Vell had come to Earth, obviously through the aid of Rick Jones, and tried to stop Nitro, to which he was pretty much unsuccessful at the time, and he had to enlist the help of Rick Jones to help him stop Nitro. Now, during the skirmish, this canister of this nerve gas, this Compound 13, had ruptured and it was leaking. After the battle had all taken place and Nitro had been defeated, Captain Marvel still had to go and stop that container from leaking. And as he did and went and did so, he was exposed to this Compound 13, and it had made him pass out. And that is the end of the Captain Marvel book in here. Then we hop into the Marvel Spotlight issues number 1 and 2. And this is where we see that this is after Captain Marvel is no longer tethered to Rick Jones. We see him teaming up with Rick Jones and his girlfriend Gertie, and even Drax the Destroyer, as they are headed to Titan, as Titan is under the attack from Isaac, this sentient computer. Now, Isaac was there kind of carrying out the mission of Thanos and just trying to dominate the world and things like that. And so it was still trying to carry those out after Captain Marvel and friends had basically already stopped had stopped Thanos at this point, and him trying to rule the universe. So they go there here over these next 2 issues, and they put a stop to Isaac and him destroying Titan. Now, during all of these skirmishes, we can kind of see everything that's going on as he helps free this planet of Titan. He ends up staying there as just as one of the heroes. Mar-Vell, we find out later, ends up staying there on Titan to kind of just live out the rest of his life. And he also ends up with a new love, as well as Una had already met her demise as well. He now has a new love interest named Elysius, who had actually been one of the people who was fighting alongside with Isaac on Thanos' side to take over the universe. And that's pretty much what we get out of the Marvel Spotlight number 1 and 2. And then that brings us to the Marvel graphic novel, The Death of Captain Marvel. And I've got to tell you, before I really get into that, I want to say these first handful of issues here, 6 issues, I think were put there well. You get into the Death of Captain Marvel, and they really catch you up on a lot of everything that's gone on in these issues. I really feel like the biggest point of these issues was so you could get there and see those first 3 issues, that introduction of Captain Marvel, and so you could see what kind of hero he is. Then in issue number 34, you get to see how he was exposed to that nerve gas, and then you see in the next 2 issues how he became this champion of the world. He now had cosmic awareness and all kinds of other things that had happened along his journey of becoming one of the protectors of not only Earth, but the universe overall. And then we get here into the Death of Captain Marvel. And here in the Death of Captain Marvel, it starts off, we see Captain Marvel as he is there it looks like he's on a ship, kind of recording his memoirs, just recalling all the things that had happened in his past, just kind of recording them, and for remembrance. And this is when as he's sitting there recording everything, kind of telling the history of how he had first been sent to Earth, his love of Una, and how he came to be one of Earth's mightiest heroes. Dare I say that? And just a lot of his journey along the way. Some very good stuff here as he's kind of going through all of these things, and he arrives back on. He ends up back on Thanos's ship there, where Thanos is actually has been turned to stone, and he is there with Mentor and Eros. Mentor is Thanos's father, and Eros is his brother, and you can see that they are there visiting Thanos. They're trying to want to get rid of his stone body and all these things. And this was after Thanos had tried to take over the universe with a cosmic cube. It wasn't the Infinity Gauntlet quite yet. At least not as far as I know. So you see him sitting there visiting basically his graveyard, when they end up getting attacked. They're attacked by some enemies who are there trying to still carry out the mission of Thanos and taking over the world, and they end up stopping fighting against these bad guys. Eros and Mentor do most of the fighting. Captain Marvel ends up interjecting because he has to. They finally end up stopping them, with one person left that they didn't kill out of all these people. And then at the end of the battle, we see that Mar-Vell is actually worn down. And this is when Mentor is asking him, like, hey, are you okay? And he's like, no. He's like, well, we can hook you up to these computers and everything. We can hook you up and see how you're doing, get your vitals and everything. He's like, I have cosmic awareness. I can turn it inward and see. And I know that there's nothing, like, I already know what's wrong with me. He already knows his diagnosis. But he goes ahead and decides to get looked at and everything anyway. They start examining him, doing all the tests and everything, only to find out that he has what they on Titan call the inner decay, or on Kree they call it the blackened, or better known on Earth as cancer. And while he was expecting it, it wasn't any surprise to him because he had remembered how he had been exposed to that nerve gas years before and how it had obviously taken its effect. And as he is there talking with Mentor after getting basically his diagnosis and everything, Mentor asked him like, "Hey, does Elysius know?" Because Captain Marvel seems like he had known for a while, and he tells him no, that she doesn't know yet. And this is when we see Captain Marvel go to his new love, Elysius, and tell her exactly what the deal is, that he has been basically diagnosed with cancer. And then after this is when we really get him kind of recalling, again, more of his memories and just some of the things that have kind of happened along the way. So again, these first stories weren't necessary to have to read because Jim Starlin does such a great job telling all of these backstories and interjecting them here into this story altogether. And it really does is a really well written story. As he's recalling his memoirs, the one thing that he decides that he needs to do is go and tell Rick Jones, the person that he had actually been bound to for some time. And he goes to Rick Jones and finds Rick Jones and tells him like, "Hey man, I think you need to go see Dr. Blake and get yourself checked out." He goes, "I know we used to be tied together, and I don't think what I'm going through is going to affect you, but just in case you should." And he tells him how he has the cancer and exactly how he had got it. And this was a point. This was really the scene before we had seen him go to Elysius, and we kind of got an emotional scene here. But this point where he finally goes to Rick Jones and tells Rick Jones is the real turning point in this story. As you can see that Rick Jones is angry. He gets mad. He gets mad at Mar-Vell for this, and just he's just angry after talking to him about all the times, and he ends up storming off, upset. To which, Mar-Vell himself, he's actually upset by this as well because he doesn't want to hurt his friend. And of course, so he ends up going back to his woman Elysius, and they're kind of talking about it. And then Mentor had actually reached out to Earth's mightiest heroes, or Earth's greatest minds anyway. And then we get to see where we see Yellow Jacket, Hank Pym. We see T'Challa, we see Beast, we see Iron Man, we see Vision, and even Wonder Man and Thor here, as they all come together. They all come together to try and figure out what they can do for their friend, for Captain Marvel. And this is really when, like I said, once he went and talked to Rick Jones, this is really when you get into the thick of this book, and it gets really heavy with emotion as you see all of these brilliant minds of all these really great superheroes coming together, realizing the sad truth that while they had been out fighting the world, fighting all these big heroes, the bigger threat that they should have been concentrating on, even more so than intergalactic threats, are the things, these ailments that these illnesses that hurt humans, as it is now affecting their friend, and they're feeling like they concentrated sooner on this problem, they may have actually been able to figure it out and not be losing their friend at this point. Again, some very heavy stuff happening here. And then we flash forward a little bit later, as Mar-Vell, when he was diagnosed, had only been diagnosed with about 6 months left to live. And we see that he ended up, Mar-Vell got a special suit and everything to help kind of slow the effects of his radiation treatments and everything. Now, the other thing that they had found as they were looking at his conditions was that one of the things actually saving his life and probably prolonged his life even longer was the negabands that had actually tied him to Rick Jones and kind of kept them connected like that. And now these things that are saving his life are actually keeping them from being able to look at and study him to be able to help him. And then we get some more just heavy moments of confrontation here, just like confronting different people and all these all too real feelings. As you see, Captain Mar-Vell, he then goes to Eros and asks him. He tells him like, "Hey," he's like, "Can I ask you something?" He's like, "I know how you feel about Elysius," and Eros like, "Hey, man, like, no, like, I'm not trying to," and Mar-Vell tells him like, "No, man." He's like, "Look, I know how you feel about her and everything, and I'm asking you if you could just basically do this one thing after I'm gone, and that's just be there, be a friend." And it's a pretty tough conversation that they're having here. And just as he's doing this, you see Mar-Vell start to break down even more from his illness. He's really starting to struggle, and this is at this point is kind of when you see the Avengers and everybody realize that this is when they realize that the Negabands are actually somewhat saving him and kind of killing him at the same time. Again, a bunch of really tough conversations going on here. And as Mar-Vell is at this point bedridden, you see a bunch of his allies, friends, and even foes coming to pay their respects. I mean, you've got everybody here. You've got Ben Grimm, you've got Spider-Man, you've got all of these people coming together right here to come see Captain Marvel and pay their respects to him. You even have the leader of the Skrulls show up to pay his respects as well, as he says that he may not have been they may not have been friends, but he was their greatest enemy, and for that they respect him, and they still show up to pay their respects to him. And then lo and behold, who ends up showing up here towards the end is Rick Jones. Rick Jones finally shows up to make his peace with Captain Mar-Vell here as well. As Mar-Vell then ends up slipping into comatosis, and then this begins his battle with death. And the person who's going to bring him into the afterlife is Thanos, and Thanos begins talking to him and things like that, as you can see just through these great panels here, these great illustrations, as Thanos he begins his descent into to death, and Thanos then comes to visit him and take him into the afterlife. And I've got to tell you, man, after reading this comic book right here, I really do understand why somebody like Eric July, Young Ripper 59, was absolutely upset at watching Captain Marvel back in 2019, watching what the Marvel Cinematic Universe had done, as they didn't even pay any kind of homage to the real hero here, Mar-Vell. Captain Marvel, this man who was from the Kree Empire. He was one of their greatest warriors and came to be one of Earth's greatest defenders because he wanted to, and he wanted to protect Earth from his own people. Now, the thing is he is also one of the very few deaths in the Marvel Universe that has happened and has stuck. This character has not been resurrected. There was a time they did something where they kind of made it seem like he was alive, but it ended up not being that. But this is one of those deaths in Marvel Comics that has stuck. He was the first character in Marvel Comics that died of cancer. And so I truly, at this point, after reading this comic book, I truly understand the passion and the complaints behind the criticisms of Young Ripper 59 when looking at what is in this comic book, and even just what I feel after reading this comic book and thinking about that movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I was like, man, it really is a shame how they changed so much of that story up, especially for the reasons that they did it too, considering they could have done all of this and done so much more with the film and, if you ask me, the franchise altogether. But that's something that we'll probably end up talking talking about in another video. Now, I want to know from you, have you read The Death of Captain Marvel? If not, is it sound like something that you might enjoy? I can tell you that I think this book is great. You get the introduction to the character, you get so much of the narration and everything, just the inner dialogue that some of these characters have with themselves that you just do not get in comic books today, especially the modern Marvel comic books. This is what a superhero is. This is the lore, this is the mythos, this is the death of Captain Marvel, and I'd highly suggest, if you're watching this video right now, that you go and check this book out. You can buy this in this trade paperback format for $20. So there's no reason not to. But that's all I have for this video today, folks. Thank you all so much for tuning into the Second Street Marvel. If you're not already, please make sure you subscribe, click the little bell and all of that good stuff. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Give it a thumbs down if you don't. That's okay. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. But if you think you're going to, you might as well leave some comments down in the comment section and try to hurt my feelings just a little bit more. And also, while you're at it, make sure you share it with a friend and invite them to come hang out with us here on the Second Street Marvel. You all have a very good day, and we'll see you in the next video. Later.